Welcome back. You're watching our continuous coverage on what is happening in Tokyo, where the Quad summit is presently underway, and we are also given to understand that the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is just addressing a gathering there. Let's listen to what's being said.
I stated that in view of the increasingly serious COVID infection in North Korea, it is important not to create a geographical vacuum. We were able to discuss on this issue. Moreover, the four countries further agreed on the necessity for prompt solution of the abduction issue. Apart from these, we had solid discussion on issues such as the grave concern over China unilaterally changing the status quo in the East and South China Seas, as well as how to respond to the situation in Myanmar and others. A Quad is a forum to promote practical cooperation in broad areas in order to realize a free and open Indo-Pacific. In the vaccine sector that we have been engaged in, has seen good progress in cooperation among the four in providing the Quad the countries, and also to the signing of the loan the contract with the JBIC to have $100 million of finance to be created. And in the infrastructure sector, announcement was made to aim for further assistance and investment, more than $50 billion in 5 years in the Indo-Pacific. We also agreed to conduct capacity building for the developing countries who are beset with debt issues. The Pacific region is rife with natural disasters. The region has many countries who are vulnerable to climate change. In the space sector, our four nations launched a program to provide satellite information to the countries in the region. The program can be utilized for different purposes such as disaster risk reduction, climate change countermeasures, as well as sustainable usage of marine resources. In order to effectively respond even more against the natural disasters in the region, we agreed on a partnership to strengthen four countries' collaboration in the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief area. In the maritime security field, moreover, we were able to launch a new initiative on maritime domain awareness to promote information sharing amongst the regional countries. Even with the Russian invasion into Ukraine, an incident that shook the very foundation of the international order, with the participation of President Biden, Prime Minister Modi, and Prime Minister Albanese, who were able to participate right after the election, we have been able to send off a powerful message of commitment by the four leaders from Tokyo to the whole world, which was extremely valuable. The four of us committed that unilateral change of status quo by force will never be allowed in any region, especially in the Indo-Pacific, and that the free and open Indo-Pacific is ever more relevant today. And it was quite relevant that we are able to send the message to the whole of the world that we will be investing more of our energy in realizing the concept. Cooperative activities of our four nations have extended into broad-based area, and collaboration at various levels are deepening day by day. During the meeting, Prime Minister Albanese offered to host next year's summit in Australia. Four countries' partnership in realizing the free and open Indo-Pacific shall be further strengthened going forward.
This will be the opportunity for questions. We will start with the Japanese press. Please raise your hand. Please wait until I invite you. If you are invited, please come forward to the microphone. Tell us your name and affiliation before the question. Please continue to wear your mask when you ask the question to prevent infection. Yes, Yamamoto-san, please. Yamamoto, TV Asahi. One of the major topics of this Quad summit, I understand, was the response to China. In particular, regarding security matters, Japan, Australia, India, and the US each has rising sense of wariness against China. How exactly did you confirm among the members how to collaborate? On the other hand, regarding the situation in Ukraine, China and India seem to be siding with Russia, and their feeling and intention are presumed to be the same. During this meeting, were there any impact of this aspect on the Quad collaboration vis-à-vis China, or were there different levels of response among the four in terms of response to Russia? Thank you. First of all, what I must emphasize is that the Quad framework, the Quad is a forum to discuss extensive matters in order to advance practical cooperation in diverse areas towards the realization of a free and open Indo-Pacific, and is not covering any particular country. I must re-emphasize this point again. So we engage in discussions in this kind of venue, and during this meeting, as part of regional affairs, the unilateral attempt to change the status quo in the East and South China Seas was discussed. We discussed about serious concerns. So we did exchange frank opinions on such regional issues of concerns. I shall refrain from introducing the specific comments of what the other leaders mentioned, but we reaffirmed the importance of the principles such as the rule of law and the sovereignty and territorial integrity, including the situation in Ukraine. And in addition to that, we agreed that unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force cannot be tolerated wherever in the world. I believe it is truly significant that the leaders of the four countries managed to send out the kind of message that I just outlined out to the world in solidarity. Thank you. Next, from the foreign press, please raise your hand. Yes, Mr. Lande.
Wall Street Journal のランダースです。
This is Landers from Wall Street Journal. You mentioned about Russia. If I may ask a follow-up question. India, so far, has maintained its neutral position. And Japan, US, and Australia have been strongly condemning the Russian aggression. And India, it seemed, were not incongruent with the other three countries in its position. Do I understand correctly that it is as such? And if it is so, what may be the impact on the relevance of Quad, please? On the international situation, each country has its own historical developments as well as a geographical situation. So even amongst the like-minded countries, the positions may not agree fully. That is only natural. But with that as a premise, to deepen mutual understanding and to spread the cooperation and collaboration would be crucial. Amongst the Quad the members, that we have been able to accumulate the sharing of our perception as well as a track record of cooperation, and it is quite important. As I have said earlier, I would like to refrain from mentioning any specific remarks made by the leaders, but the basic understanding is that for Ukrainian situation, amongst the 4 leaders, including India, that we were able to reaffirm the importance of the various principles, such as the rule of law, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and also a unilateral change of status quo by force shall never be allowed in any region. We were able to agree on this understanding as well. This time, the 4 leaders, as I have said earlier, although their position may be different somewhat, but even so, on the points that I have just mentioned, we were able to come to agreement. And we were able to send out a message that we have agreed to the whole world, and that in itself is quite relevant. And amongst the Quad countries, going forward, we will be advancing practical cooperation in realizing free and open Indo-Pacific. And as we accumulate these concrete results, and as a major understanding and recognition, there are things that we can share and agree with each other, and we will be able to hold a candid exchange of views to try to confirm and affirm on those thoughts.
Next from the Japanese press, Tahara-san, please. Thank you, Takara, Japan Times. The 4 countries of Quad yesterday, IPEF, all the 4 countries have decided to participate. In Asia, there is RCEP or CPTPP already. So compared to the existing regional framework, how are you going to differentiate IPEF? And going forward, in the military area, do you think Quad should deepen the cooperation? I seek your view. Thank you. First of all, regarding IPEF, which was launched yesterday under the leadership of President Biden, we welcome and support this framework because this is an embodiment of the proactive commitment of the U.S. to the Indo-Pacific region. So Japan welcomes and supports IPEF. In order to start the discussion, I also attended the inauguration ceremony together with President Biden and Prime Minister Modi. You mentioned about existing frameworks like CPTPP and RCEP. How would it be different was what you asked. First of all, more than anything else, the United States is going to engage in the Indo-Pacific economic order, that the U.S. is showing commitment. That's very significant. And India is also participating, which is different from RCEP or CPTPP. India is not there. So U.S. and India are joining. I think that's one key point. On top of that, there are 4 areas that are being covered, like more resilience of supply chains, which is the topical issues as of today. And we have decided to cooperate. It is a forum to discuss and confirm. The point is, in the Indo-Pacific region, to realize sustainable and inclusive economic growth must be realized. The growth in this region must be sustainable and inclusive. It is important to realize sustainable and inclusive economic growth in the Indo-Pacific region, and that is what IPEF stands for. Under that viewpoint, we will deepen our discussion amongst the participating countries, and we shall work together in order to achieve concrete outcomes. That, I think, is the basic spirit of IPEF. Regarding CPTPP, it includes high levels of liberalization in terms of trade and investment of goods and services, as well as it is a 21st century type of rules in broad areas and incorporates the emphasis on rules, transparency, equity, and others, and is an advanced, sophisticated economic arrangement. So, regarding such existing arrangements, the position of Japan that we wish the U.S. would return to the TPP is the same. We desire that U.S. returns, and indeed, we strongly favor the U.S. return, and our outreach to the U.S. will continue. Japan's such position to wish the U.S. return to the TPP will not change, so that I would like to clearly mention. So for each of the economic arrangement, by utilizing those different frameworks, I sincerely hope that sustainable and inclusive economic growth shall be realized in the Indo-Pacific, and we shall explore the pathway. Thank you. This will be the last question. Yes, Smith. Mr. Smith on the third.
Prime Minister Michael Smith from the Australian Financial Review. You met Australia's new Prime Minister today. I'm just wondering specifically, what do you think Japan and Australia can do to strengthen their quasi-alliance? You, of course, signed the RAA earlier this year. Would Japan consider joining the AUKUS Security Pact? Is that something you would consider? And are you looking forward to working with the new Australian Prime Minister to do more to support regional security, particularly in the Pacific? Thank you.
Yes, first of all, at the Quad summit this time, that Prime Minister Albanese, the new Prime Minister of Australia, on the same day that he was sworn in as Prime Minister, that he has flown over to Japan. I would like to sincerely welcome Prime Minister Albanese. Japan and Australia are the special and strategic partners, sharing fundamental values as well as strategic interests. In order to realize free and open Indo-Pacific, it is extremely important to promote security and defense cooperation between Japan and Australia. After this press conference, I will be meeting with Prime Minister Albanese. We will have our bilateral at the summit. And including security and defense arena, I would like to confirm with him that we will make efforts to further deepen the relations between Japan and Australia. You have asked me whether we are considering perhaps joining AUKUS or not. On AUKUS is conducive to the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific. So Japan supports the endeavor. Now, for Japan, we are not thinking at all of joining AUKUS right now. But our important partners in security and defense...
All right, so that was the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. They're fielding questions that are being put forth to him. And one of the questions that was put forth was, will Japan consider joining the AUKUS military alliance? Fumio Kishida, they're stating that at this point of time, Japan would not want to join the military alliance. Now, this, remember, is a crucial summit meeting that was held earlier this morning between the four leaders of India, Japan, Australia and the United States to try and take this forum forward. This is essentially a forum that came into existence to counter the rise of a belligerent China. And apart from that, there are a whole host of commonalities that the four sides have, of course, discussed in taking the issues forward. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.